Chapter 2737. The Lien family fort's strange incident will be even more exciting in the next episode 4. Lung Yuma had long since given up all hope of winning, so when she heard these shameless words, her heart could no longer feel the slightest ripple. She chuckled lightly and said in a seemingly casual manner, "So, this woman who has harmed my mother's entire life, in the eyes of Patriarch Lien, is only making a small, forgivable mistake? 1 year of confinement is enough, right?" Lien Sheng said unhappily. Shu Qin is in the wrong, but she did it for the safety of the Lien family fort. Naturally, it's pardonable. This matter can only be blamed on your mother's restlessness. As a married woman, she couldn't bear a son, yet she didn't allow me to take a concubine. She even often showed her face outside. That's why he provoked the city lord of Fusang City. Now, I've let bygones be bygones and am willing to bring her back into the Lien family, allowing her to be on equal footing with Shu Qin. What else do you want? The position of the eldest daughter of the Lien family is also yours. Are you still not satisfied? Before Lung Yuma could say anything, Luo Yu and the rest were already seething with anger. Damn it, I don't want to interfere with fourth senior sister's family matters. But this man is too fucking inhumane. I can't take it anymore. How can there be such a disgusting and shameless man in this world? How could he be born in Changyang City? He should have died together with those bastards in Fusang City. As the patriarch of the Lien family, Lien Sheng had always been high and mighty and respected. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? Hearing this, he was instantly enraged. However, before he could react, Lung Yuma had already stopped them. Her expression was calmer and more indifferent than ever. Looking at Lien Sheng, there was not a trace of emotion in his eyes. What's the rush, Patriarch Lien? The next episode of the Lien Family Castle Mysteries hasn't ended yet. Don't you want to continue watching? Saying that, he once again injected his spiritual power into the Mirage Light Stone. The Mirage Light Stone once again lit up, causing the image to appear once again. It was also a man and a woman, but the scene that appeared this time was a little different. This was because the two people in the video were not wearing any clothes. They were hugging each other and doing something indescribable. When the clouds dispersed and the rain stopped, the appearance of the two could be seen. The woman was Lung Xuqin, and the man was unexpectedly Willow Valley Chung. Willow Guqing said, "Little Vixen, you really have the charm to captivate people. I'm a little reluctant to part with you. I want to take you back to Fusang City." Lung Xuqin knocked on the man's body. "You're so annoying. I had to go through a lot of trouble to help you get Lung Ruolin. You haven't done what you promised me. Are you trying to act shamelessly?" Willow Guqing smiled, took out a porcelain bottle from his storage ring, and handed it to Lung Xuqin. As long as Lien Sheng consumes the extinction powder, he will no longer be able to make women give birth to children. TSK. Why else would they say that a woman's heart was the most vicious? This man wants to make you his official wife, yet you still want to give him the extinction powder. Lung Xuqin's face revealed a ferocious expression as she gritted her teeth and said, "Winning streak brought all of this upon us. He clearly said that when I gave birth to a son, he would get rid of Lung Ruolin and make me his official wife. Who knew that when I used the secret medicine and finally gave birth to a son, he would use the excuse that Lung Zhishuan from the Yunling Lung clan had advanced to the crossing tribulation stage, and that he could not offend the Lung clan at this time. My son soon died, and the secret medicine also made me infertile. Since I can't give birth, why should he have another child? From now on, everything in the Lien family fort can only belong to me, Lung Xuqin, and my daughter. Ha 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 ha." Chapter 2738. Forced Marriage 1. The light on the Mirage Stone disappeared, and the conversation between the two people came to an abrupt end. Lien Sheng stiffly turned around like a wooden chicken, looking at Lung Yuma. Lung Yuma's whole body was trembling. Her face was full of fear and despair, and she kept shouting, Big Brother Sheng, you have to believe me, this is not true, this is a false accusation. Yes, it is a false accusation. Slap. A fierce slap landed on Lung Xuqin's face, causing her to roll several times on the ground. When she got up, her whole face was swollen like a pig's head. Lian Sheng's eyes were filled with deep hatred. You evil woman. You actually used extinction powder on me. You actually hooked up with Willow Guqing long ago. I doted on you for so many years, I trusted you so much, and let you be the mistress of the Lian clan. As he roared, he fiercely kicked Lung Xuqin's body. Lian Sheng did not use spiritual power, but used all the strength in his body. The physical strength of a crossing tribulation cultivator can be imagined. The bones in Lung Xuqin's body were broken one by one. She was also a nascent soul cultivator. Such a trivial injury would not cause her to die or lose consciousness. She could only continue to bear the pain, and kept screaming. When she found that begging for mercy and wailing were completely useless, Lung Xuqin began to laugh hysterically. Lian Sheng, you dog thing, do you really think I like you? Only that blind fool, Lung Roland, would take a liking to a man like you who's all gold and jade on the outside. I seduced you, cough cough cough. I seduced you just to make Lung Roland suffer and go crazy. You really think I have a deep love for you, ha 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 ha. When I was with you, every day I hooked up with different men. Willow Guqing is just one of them. A waste like you deserve to die without descendants. You deserve to lose your reputation, ha 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 ha. Slut. Slut. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. Lian Sheng was simply going crazy. His eyes were filled with ferocious killing intent. With a flick of his wrist, a steel saber appeared in his hand, and he ruthlessly chopped at Lung Xuqin's neck. However, before Lung Xuqin's neck could be chopped off, a clang was heard as the steel knife was deflected by a small stone. Lung Yuma looked at him coldly. I'm sorry, Patriarch Lian. Before this person pays off what he owes my mother, I don't intend to let him die so easily. As he said that, he threw the second stone under Lung Xuqin's terrified gaze, causing her to faint. Luo Yu immediately ran over happily, tied up the unconscious man, and dragged him to the side. At this time, Lian Sheng also recovered from his state of madness. Wiping his face, he gritted his teeth and said, You're right. This vicious woman, if we let her die so easily, it would be too easy for her. Yuma, you did the right thing this time. Dad will remember your contribution. Lung Yuma sneered and ignored him. She turned around and left. Where are you going? Lian Sheng asked quickly. Lung Yuma said, Patriarch Lian is really forgetful. I've already said that I came to the Lian family to seek justice for my mother. Now that the matter has been settled, we naturally have to leave. No, you can't leave, Lian Sheng anxiously said. You're my Lian Sheng's only bloodline, and the eldest daughter of the Lian family castle. How can you fool around with a group of shady people outside? Chapter 2739. Forced Marriage 2. Hearing Lung Xuqin's words, Lian Sheng hated this woman to the bone. He didn't believe that Lian Yunxiang was his own flesh and blood. In other words, the only one left of Lian Sheng's bloodline was Lung Yuma. Thinking of this, Lian Sheng slowed down his tone. Daddy knows that Daddy let you and your mother down, but Daddy was also deceived by scoundrels. Now that Daddy knows his wrongs, as long as you and your mother come back, I promise that no one in the Lian castle will dare to disrespect you and your mother. There's also the Liang family's marriage. The two families have been engaged since young, and Liang Rui likes you very much. I think the marriage should be set in March next year. At that time, the two biggest families in Changyang City will join forces. I want to see who would dare to point fingers at my Lian castle and me. Lian Sheng said a bunch of things, but Lung Yuma looked at him, as if he was an idiot. When he finished, she sneered. I'll say it again. My surname is not Lian. I'm Lung Yuma. From the day you cheated on Lung Xuqin, gave up on my mother, and kicked me out of the Lian castle, Lian Yuma was already dead. I don't have a father, only a mother. If you want to marry into the two families, then marry them yourself. It has nothing to do with me. Lian Sheng was furious. Stop, what kind of attitude is this? Do you know how many people dream of being the eldest daughter of the Lian family? What kind of honor is it to be the mistress of the Liang family? How can you not know what's good for you? Lung Yuma ignored him, carried the unconscious Lung Xuqin, and turned to leave. Someone come. Stop them for me. Lian Sheng flew into a rage. The spiritual power in his body surged and fiercely attacked the 7 people. His attack wasn't aimed at Lung Yuma, but at the 6 of them. Lian Sheng still remembered the hatred of the 6 people who slandered him. Now they even wanted to abduct his only flesh and blood. New hatred and old hatred surged, and Lian Sheng decided to kill the chicken to warn the monkey. He wanted to let Lung Yuma know the consequences of resisting him. Boom! With a loud noise, the entire Lian castle collapsed, attracting the attention of all the people in Changyang City. 7 figures soared into the sky and hovered in mid-air. Then, Lian Sheng released a powerful pressure of the crossing calamity stage and led the guards of the Lian family into the sky. Lian Sheng's eyes were cold as he said word by word. Lian Yuma, I'll give you one more chance. Obediently follow me back and marry into the Liang family. Then, I'll let these 6 bastards live. Lung Yuma sneered, dream on. Lian Sheng's face was ashen, and a quasi-divine weapon, tiger-subduing saber, appeared in his hand. Good. You really were brought up by your mother. Disrespectful to your elders, arrogant and unruly. Back then, I wanted to teach you to be a virtuous lady, but your mother insisted on not allowing it. That's why you became like this. But now that your mother is gone, I want to see who can stop me from disciplining you. Today, in front of the people of Changyang City, I will let you know the price of disobeying your father. As he spoke, the tiger-subduing saber emitted a powerful killing intent and pressure. Lian Sheng's eyes were fixed on the 6 of them. He had already made up his mind to kill all of Lung Yuma's fellow apprentices in one strike. It was because of these bastards' instigation that his daughter became more and more daring to openly disobey her father's orders. Chapter 2740. Grandpa. 1. All the cultivators in Changyang City revealed expressions of fear and panic. They knew that the Xiaoyao 7 were strong. After reading the book, they hated Lian Sheng's sanctimonious attitude. But Lian Sheng was a tribulation-passing cultivator, and he had so many original infant guards. How could the Xiaoyao 7 be his match? Everyone held their breath. At this time, Mu Yan once again took out a treasure talisman. The talisman had enough energy to defeat a tribulation-passing cultivator. As long as the energy wasn't used up, the talisman could be used again. But before Mu Yan could activate the talisman with his spiritual power, countless dark clouds gathered in the sky above Changyang City. The originally clear and sunny sky suddenly became overcast. At the same time, the dignified voice boomed out, enveloping the entire city. Lian Sheng, you can't teach the children of the Yinling Lung clan a lesson. He did not purposefully raise his voice, but it was like a bell that struck the depths of the souls of every single person in Changyang City. Mu Yan stopped activating the talisman. Lian Sheng's tiger-subduing saber flew out of his hand and hovered above the heads of the Xiaoyao sect. It was a quasi-godly weapon that contained the full power of a tribulation-passing cultivator, and it emitted a destructive pressure. It seemed like it could fall down at any time and cut the ants into pieces. However, Lian Sheng, who was supposed to control the tiger-subduing saber, froze in the air. His face was full of disbelief. His lips moved slightly as he murmured, "No, it's impossible." The thought flashed through his mind. There was a crackling sound, and a bolt of lightning tore through the dark sky. The thunder and fire fell from the sky and hit the tiger-subduing saber. Boom! The violent explosion and the aftermath of the spiritual vortex exploded in the sky above Longyang City. All the people in Changyang City were affected by the explosion and fell to the ground. They hurried to use their spiritual power to protect themselves. Only the Xiaoyao 7 were protected by the lightning. Mu Yan had already activated the sound barrier of Divine Hand's Weaver Heaven, easily blocking the aftermath of the whirlpool. Although the tiger-subduing saber was not Lian Sheng's natal dharma treasure, it was still connected to his soul. With the tiger-subduing saber destroyed, he immediately spat out a mouthful of blood, his face pale. However, this was not the end. Rumble! While everyone was still in a state of shock, the second bolt of lightning fell and struck Lian Sheng. Lian Sheng was already alerted when the tiger-subduing saber was destroyed. A huge cauldron flew out from the top of his head. It emitted a green radiance and firmly protected him. At the same time, he channeled all the spiritual energy in his body into the bell cauldron. This cauldron was called the Shrinking Turtle Cauldron. The name might not sound nice, but it was Lian Sheng's real trump card. If the tiger-subduing saber was a quasi-divine artifact, then this cauldron was a true divine artifact, the Turtle Shrinking Cauldron. When the lightning fell, the Turtle Shrinking Cauldron shook violently, and Lian Sheng's face turned pale because of the excessive consumption of spiritual power. But in the end, the protective shield of the Turtle Shrinking Cauldron was not broken. Lian Sheng's face showed that he had survived a disaster, and then he looked at the sky in horror. His hands, which were hanging by his side, trembled slightly. In the next moment, a figure appeared between Lian Sheng and Leng Yuma. It was an old man in ragged clothes. The dark clouds in the sky dispersed, and the sunlight fell on the old man's face, shining on his unshaven beard and wrinkles. Chapter 2741. Grandfather, Grandfather? 2. However, he was just an ordinary old man who looked like a beggar. At this moment, it was hovering in the air, but it gave off a terrifying pressure that made it hard for people to breathe. Seeing this old man, Luo Yu exclaimed, isn't this the old man who blackmailed fourth senior sister? Leng Yaoshan, who was feeling pressured earlier, turned around and smiled at Leng Yuma. Don't worry, with me here, no one can bully you. Leng Yuma's expression was complicated. She moved her lips, but did not say a word. Back in the side courtyard, when she noticed that Leng Wulin's attitude towards the old man was different, she had already guessed his identity. The ancestor of the Yunling Leng family, the number 1 of the Green Sky list. Leng Yaoshan, who was known as the strongest cultivator in the cultivation continent. He was also Leng Wulin's father, her grandfather. When they first met, Leng Yuma felt strange. She was not the kind of person who would take pity on the weak. This old man kept pestering her, but she was not angry at all. The conditions proposed by the old man were so unreasonable that she finally compromised and agreed. She didn't even doubt his motives at all. So it was because this person was her grandfather. The power of the bloodline was just that strange. Seeing Leng Yaoshan standing in front of her, telling her not to be afraid, Leng Yuma's heart was filled with a different kind of warmth. This was something that she had not felt for many years, the warmth of being cared for and loved by her elders and relatives. But very quickly, the scene of her being chased out of the Yunling appeared in her mind. All these thoughts flashed past in an instant. At this moment, Lian Sheng finally recovered from his shock. The shrinking tortoise cauldron above his head was still there. Gritting his teeth, he looked at Leng Yaoshan, trying his best to keep his voice from trembling. Father-in-law, why? Why are you here in Changyang City? Pfft, who is your father-in-law? Leng Yaoshan did not hesitate to denounce him. You are a piece of shit with no morals, no capabilities, and no talents. You don't even deserve to clean the toilets of the Leng family of Yunling. The few of them were talking in the sky. However, Leng Yaoshan's voice was loud and clear. It was filled with energy, directly reaching the ears of the citizens below. Everyone was used to seeing the arrogant faces of the Lian family fort members. This was especially true for consecutive victories. He was a mighty figure in the tribulation passing stage, who could not be disobeyed. Now that he saw Leng Yaoshan scolding him like a dog but not daring to say anything, he felt an indescribable sense of schadenfreude. Some people couldn't help but laugh out loud. Lian Sheng's face alternated between green and white. After a long while he finally said, Leng, Senior, didn't you already expel Rua Lin from the Leng family? You said in front of everyone that from now on, my Lian family's matters have nothing to do with your Leng family. Why are you meddling in my Lian family's matters now? Leng Yaoshan's face darkened as he said darkly, It's because I'm too stubborn about what I've said that I allowed trash like you to harm my daughter to this state. Now, it's not enough that you've harmed my daughter. You want to harm my granddaughter as well? Do you really think my Yunling Leng family is just a decoration? Lian Sheng, I did all this for the good of Yuma. Before he could finish, Leng Yaoshan slapped him in the face. Do you think I will listen to a dog's quibble? I will first pull out your tendons, peel off your skin, and then I will settle the score with you for the past few years. Continue to write, it may be late. Read it when you wake up. Chapter 2742. Lian Sheng was so frightened by the anger that he took a step back. I I was also deceived by that vicious woman. I admit that I was wrong. But in the end, wasn't it because the Lung family refused to accept me and looked down on me, which led to today's tragedy? Just because you're from the Yunling Lung clan, you can look down on us? Thinking of the anger and hatred he felt when he was humiliated, Lian Sheng's voice became louder and louder. Now you want to take advantage of your power to bully the weak? Lung Yiwei was completely disgusted by his shamelessness. However, before he could react, the refined man on the right side of Lung Yaoshan had already walked forward and said slowly, "Who said the one who wants to fight with you is my big brother? Lian Sheng, didn't you want to be a peer? Then, how about I be your opponent?" Lian Sheng looked at the handsome man in front of him with a surprised expression. "You, who are you?" The man raised the corner of his lips, revealing a cold and sinister smile. "Lung Jishuan." Lian Sheng sucked in a breath of cold air. The young man in front of him looked much younger than him, but his cultivation was also at the crossing calamity stage. All these years, he had been stuck at the first stage of the tribulation, but this young man was already at the third stage. If one were to say that Lian Sheng was just surprised and jealous when he first saw this young man, then Lian Sheng would definitely not be a match for him. Now all that was left was shock. Lung Jishuan. He was the young man who followed behind Ruo Lin, without making a sound or speaking a word back then. How old was he? When they first met in the Yunling, what was his cultivation level? He didn't even seem to be at the nascent soul stage. Now he had reached the third stage of tribulation? Lian Sheng's lips trembled for a long time. "You, how could you be Lung Jishuan? How did you reach the crossing calamity stage so quickly?" The fact that the Yunling Lung clan had undergone 3 tribulations was something that many clans and sects in the cultivation world knew about. However, many people had always thought that the third tribulation passing cultivator of the Lung clan would be Lung Yaoshan's younger brother, or the old madam. Who would have thought that it would be Lung Jishuan, the young adopted son? Lung Jishuan slowly unsheathed his long sword and pointed it at Lian Sheng. "Lian Sheng, now do you still want to say that the Yunling Lung family is a bully? A battle between 2 tribulation-passing cultivators should be earth-shattering and earth-shattering." However, the truth was that the battle between Lung Jishuan and Lian Sheng only lasted for a quarter of an hour. The citizens of Changyang City, who were originally considering whether or not to hide in their houses, were all shocked. Just as he regained his footing, he saw a crushing humiliation that was sure to unfold before him. Yes, Lung Jishuan had openly humiliated Lian Sheng. Like a monkey, he played with him for a quarter of an hour. All of the attacks landed on the Lian family head's handsome face. She beat him until his face was unrecognizable, and his clothes were cut into pieces. Only then did she kick the naked man to the ground. Lian Sheng lay on the ruins of the Lian family fortress, which had been affected by the aftermath of the battle. He couldn't get up for a long time. The self-healing ability of a tribulation-transcending cultivator was extremely strong. The superficial wounds on his face were slowly healed by the circulation of his spiritual power. However, everything that had happened in the last quarter of an hour was a great humiliation to Lian Sheng. It was more painful than letting him die. Lian Sheng was originally a person with an extremely strong ego. When he wasn't accepted by the Yunling Lung clan, he hated the Lung clan. So much so that he later vented his anger on his wife, Lung Ruolin, who had given him a new lease of life. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2743. At this time, being tortured by Lung Jishuan, he hated the Lung family to the extreme. He raised his head and gritted his teeth as he looked at Lung Jishuan, who landed in front of him. He thought that one day, when he made a comeback and had enough power, he would definitely slaughter the entire Yunling Lung family. Just as he was fantasizing, Lung Jishuan had already bent down slightly and was very close to him. A cold and slender hand slowly pressed against Lian Sheng's naked back. In a split second, a bone-chilling energy passed through the surface of his body and poured into Lian Sheng's back. It quickly traveled along his spine. Lian Sheng was terrified. "You, what are you doing?" At first, he was just puzzled. But then the cold energy in his body suddenly turned into a scorching fire. That scorching heat was so terrifying that Lian Sheng, could almost hear the sizzling sound of his flesh being roasted around his bones. However, his spine was completely unscathed, because his spine was forged from the Lung family's treasure, the ice jade marrow bone. Ah! Liansheng couldn't help but howl like a pig being slaughtered. What are you doing? Stop, stop! Help! Help! Ah! Amidst the shrill screams, Lung Zhishuan pulled out Liansheng's spine. Liansheng instantly fell to the ground like mud, struggling at death's door. But he could no longer get up. No, no, no! This is my spine. This is my ice jade marrow bone. You return the ice jade marrow bone to me, return it to me. Lung Zhishuan looked down at him coldly. The ice jade marrow bone belongs to the Yinling Lung family Ruolin. Back then, she treated you with absolute sincerity, and used this ice jade marrow bone to save your life. Who knew that not only are you not grateful, you even connived with Lung Xuqin to harm her like that? Liansheng, what qualifications do you have to continue to have this ice jade marrow bone? Liansheng desperately wanted to get up, but without his spine, even if he had a strong spiritual power stored in his dantian, he couldn't stand up at all, and couldn't even circulate it into his meridians. In other words, he became the only trash in the tribulation stage in the world. No, I'm the master of the Lian family. I'm a tribulation passing stage cultivator. Umo, hurry up and get Daddy's ice jade essence bone back. Yuma, I beg you. Liansheng wailed mournfully and implored. Lung Yuma looked at the ice jade marrow bone in Lung Zhishuan's hand, then looked at Liansheng and slowly said, Patriarch Lian, do you remember what I asked you on the first day I returned to the Lian family castle? Liansheng was taken aback. Soon after, his own voice resounded in his mind. I, Liansheng, wish to marry Lung clan's Ruolin. If I can get what I want in this life, I will cherish and love her. I will never let anyone hurt her, bully her. For the rest of my life, I will never leave or abandon you. If I go back on my vow, I will be haunted by my inner demons and never be able to advance. At that time, he wanted to make an oath to the heavenly Tao, but he hesitated for a moment and secretly turned an oath into a sweet promise that he could go back on at any time. Many years later, when he was having an affair with Lung Xuqin, he rejoiced in his decision countless times. Lung Umo sneered. Back then, you didn't even make an oath to the heavens, right? It's just that in this world, the heavenly Tao reincarnates. If you don't believe me, look up, the heavens will forgive you. After that, she didn't say any more superfluous words and turned to leave. The six of them naturally left together without the slightest hesitation. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2744. At this time, being tortured by Lung Zhishuan, he hated the Lung family to the extreme. He raised his head and gritted his teeth as he looked at Lung Zhishuan, who landed in front of him. He thought that one day, when he made a comeback and had enough power, he would definitely slaughter the entire Yunling Lung family. Just as he was fantasizing, Lung Zhishuan had already bent down slightly and was very close to him. A cold and slender hand slowly pressed against Liansheng's naked back. In a split second, a bone-chilling energy passed through the surface of his body and poured into Liansheng's back. It quickly traveled along his spine. Liansheng was terrified. What are you doing? At first, he was just puzzled, but then the cold energy in his body suddenly turned into a scorching fire. That scorching heat was so terrifying that Liansheng could almost hear the sizzling sound of his flesh being roasted around his bones. However, his spine was completely unscathed, because his spine was forged from the Lung family's treasure, the ice jade marrow bone. Ah! Liansheng couldn't help but howl like a pig being slaughtered. What are you doing? Stop, stop! Help! Help! Ah! Amidst the shrill screams, Lung Zhishuan pulled out Liansheng's spine. Liansheng instantly fell to the ground like mud, struggling at death's door. But he could no longer get up. No, no, no! This is my spine. This is my ice jade marrow bone. You return the ice jade marrow bone to me, return it to me. Lung Zhishuan looked down at him coldly. The ice jade marrow bone belongs to the Yinling Lung family Ruolin. Back then, she treated you with absolute sincerity, and used this ice jade marrow bone to save your life. Who knew that not only are you not grateful, you even connived with Lung Xuqin to harm her like that? Lian Sheng, what qualifications do you have to continue to have this ice jade marrow bone? Lian Sheng desperately wanted to get up, but without his spine, even if he had a strong spiritual power stored in his dantian, he couldn't stand up at all, and couldn't even circulate it into his meridians. In other words, he became the only trash in the tribulation stage in the world. No, I'm the master of the Lian family. I'm a tribulation passing stage cultivator. UMO, hurry up and get daddy's ice jade essence bone back. Yuma, I beg you. Lian Sheng wailed mournfully and implored. Lung Yuma looked at the ice jade marrow bone in Lung Zhishuan's hand, then looked at Lian Sheng and slowly said, Patriarch Lian, do you remember what I asked you on the first day I returned to the Lian family castle? Lian Sheng was taken aback. Soon after, his own voice resounded in his mind. I, Lian Sheng, wish to marry Lung clan's Rua Lin. If I can get what I want in this life, I will cherish and love her. I will never let anyone hurt her, bully her. For the rest of my life, I will never leave or abandon you. If I go back on my vow, I will be haunted by my inner demons and never be able to advance. At that time, he wanted to make an oath to the heavenly Tao, but he hesitated for a moment and secretly turned an oath into a sweet promise that he could go back on at any time. Many years later, when he was having an affair with Lung Xuqin, he rejoiced in his decision countless times. Lung Umo sneered. Back then, you didn't even make an oath to the heavens, right? It's just that in this world, the heavenly Tao reincarnates. If you don't believe me, look up, the heavens will forgive you. After that, she didn't say any more superfluous words and turned to leave. Of course, the six of them left together without hesitation. Chapter 2745. Lung Zhishuan was still calm on the surface, but if one looked closely at his eyes, the anger and murderous intent in them made the Xiaoyao Seven frightened. Yuma, do you still remember that girl's appearance? Lung Yuma nodded, then shook her head. I can't remember her appearance, but if I see her again, I can recognize her. Are you willing to go back to Yunling with us? Lung Zhishuan's eyes showed a pleading look. Only in Yunling can Ruolin get the best treatment. I will never allow anyone who hurts Ruolin and you to live in Yunling. Lung Yuma's eyes met three pairs of eyes full of ardent expectation. Then she turned to look at the dull Lung Ruolin. Finally, she gritted her teeth and nodded. She didn't want to go back to the Yunling Lung family, but she wouldn't let go of anyone who hurt her mother. The luxurious flying boat went to the Yunling Lung family. Along the way, Lung Yaoshan had changed into a black robe, and his face was dignified. He didn't look like the old beggar at all. However, it was precisely because of the change in his attire and demeanor that made him look extremely comical when he came to curry favor with Lung Yuma with a straight face. I don't want to eat these things. I didn't specially send them to you. Girl, you can have a taste. If you don't like it, then throw it away. As soon as Lung Yaoshan left, the people of the Xiaoyao sect couldn't help but laugh. Fourth sister, I think the Yunling Lung family should still be very concerned about you and your mother. There might have been some misunderstanding before. Hearing Ling Yuxing's words, Luo Yu nodded as she ate the snacks left behind by Lung Yaoshan. I think so too. These few days, not to mention the precious treasures they've given us, just the care they've given to Aunt Lung is unbelievable. Mu Yan saw that Lung Yuma was in a trance and patted her shoulder. People's eyes don't lie. They look at Aunt Lung with guilt, regret and heartache. Especially that Lung Zhishuan. These days, Lung Ruolin's daily life was almost all taken care of by Lung Zhishuan. Some secret things that men couldn't intervene in, he always quietly guarded outside the door, not willing to leave even for a moment. A tribulation passing stage powerhouse did the work of a servant, but he didn't feel the slightest bit out of place. This kind of relationship was no longer something that could be explained by the love between siblings. Moreover, if she remembered correctly, Lung Zhishuan seemed to be an adopted son of the Lung family, but he grew up with fourth sister's mother, Lung Ruolin. Lung Yuma smiled, and the depression in her eyes slowly turned into a carefree one. These few days, with the people of the Lung clan accompanying her, I feel that mother's condition has improved a lot, and her eyes have become more lively. If she stays in the Lung family, and is taken care of by mother's relatives, I won't stop her. But, she rolled her eyes and laughed. My mother will stay in the Yinling Mountains, but that doesn't mean I will. I'm a member of the Xiaoyao school when I'm alive, and I'll be a ghost of the Xiaoyao school when I die. Don't even think about leaving me behind. Everyone couldn't help but laugh. Fourth senior sister. What if you find someone you like in the future? Lung Yumo raised her hand and said, of course, let him marry into the Xiaoyao sect, just like Xiao Wu's brother Qing. In order to recapture Ling Yusheng, Ouyang Qing didn't hesitate to choose to marry into the Xiaoyao sect. Now, she stayed in the Netherworld Flame Valley to take care of Ling Yusheng's parents and assist Bai Yichen in managing the Netherworld Flame Valley. But she didn't have any complaints. Chapter 2746. Was Ouyang Qing not proud? Not outstanding. How was that possible? He was the current clan leader of the Ouyang clan, and was once one of the top talents in the Starry School. But no matter how proud he was, his love and guilt for Ling Yusheng couldn't compare. Therefore, even if he had to give up everything, he was willing to do it. He was even willing to stay behind and let Ling Yusheng soar higher and higher into the sky. Ling Yusheng blushed at the mention of Ouyang Qing, but his eyes were gentle. The Xiaoyao sect members also laughed. After this, I want to go back to the Hellfire Valley, Ling Yusheng said. Yin Ruhan nodded lightly. The Xiaoyao sect and the Starry School are our true homes. As the seven were talking and laughing, the spaceship suddenly shook and descended. Soon it landed on the platform. They had arrived at the Yinling Lung clan. Oh my god! Luo Yu exclaimed as soon as he landed. This is the Yinling Lung clan? Before them was a huge platform for spaceships. There was a flight of steps below the platform, and behind the steps was a long path that led to the palace. What made people speechless was that whether it was the platform, the stairs, or the path, they were all paved with crystal stones. On both sides of the crystal path were countless spiritual herbs and flowers. The air was filled with dense spiritual energy, causing one to be intoxicated to the point of fainting with just a breath. Fourth sister. Luo Yu grabbed onto Lung Yuma's hand. So you are the real Ms. Perfect, Wuwu. Please take care of me, please feed me. Lung Yuma slapped his head away and turned her head to think carefully. Do you think I should go back and be the young lady of the Yinling Lung clan for a few days? I'll dig some treasures for the Xiaoyao sect first. Luo Yu nodded frantically. These ordinary crystals and spiritual herbs are not good enough. If we're going to dig, we'll dig them well. My treasure can't keep up with my speed anymore. It'll be great if I can change to a new set, Ling Yusheng said. Spiritual herbs. Fourth sister. Remember to find some rare spiritual herbs. Mu Yin said. It'll be great if there's a tribulation cultivator's corpse for me to study, Chu Moli said. Yin Ruhan facepalmed. All of you shut up. Don't you find it embarrassing? Lin is it really my Lin At this moment, a scream came from afar. Then, dozens of figures emerged from the hall in the distance and soared into the sky. In the blink of an eye, these people were right in front of him. The originally spacious crystal platform was now packed to the brim. Seeing these people, even with Mu Yan's composure, she can't help but slightly change her expression. There were dozens of them, and all of them were leaving aperture cultivators. Moreover, more than half of them were above the 5th level of astral projection. The Yinling Lung clan was indeed worthy of being the #1 clan in the cultivation continent. As soon as they stood still, this group of people knelt down. Greetings, old ancestor. Welcome, patriarch. Among the crowd, only a middle-aged woman with some white hair on her temples and an extremely beautiful appearance did not have the intention to kneel at all. She suddenly rushed to the front of Lung Ruolin, who was supported by Lung Jishuan. Looking at her silly and soulless appearance, the middle-aged woman could no longer bear it. She threw herself at her and cried, Lin my poor Lin how did you become like this? Mother shouldn't have let you go. No, mother should have left with you. Lung Ruolin was still expressionless, but sparkling tears slowly flowed down from her eyes. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2747. Cough. Alright, don't cry, Lin is tired and needs rest. As soon as Lung Yaoshan opened his mouth, The middle-aged woman turned around and glared at him fiercely. Lung Yaoshan, how dare you speak? If it wasn't for you, how would Lin end up like this? If you didn't chase them away and let Lin see the true colors of the winning streak, Lin wouldn't have to suffer like this. The #1 expert on the green sky list was scolded by his wife to the point that he couldn't even lift his head. All these years he was also vexed. Lung Yaoshan had a bad temper back then, and no one dared to disobey him in Yunling. When Lung Ruolin resisted, he got angry and wanted to sever all ties with her. But she didn't expect Lung Ruolin to be so stubborn. She really left without any reluctance. All these years, no matter how bitter and regretful she was, she never returned to Yunling. And this stubbornness of the father and daughter caused irreparable regret and tragedy. Seeing her husband's drooping eyebrows and red eyes, Madame Lung couldn't help but feel sad. Is there really no way to cure Ruolin? Lung Yaoshan didn't answer, but Lung Yue sighed softly. Before returning to Yunling, we went to Bright Moon City to find Dr. Lu. But Dr. Lu said that little sister's 3 souls and 7 mortal forms have been scattered, and she shouldn't live for more than a few months. It's already very fortunate that she is still like this. As Lung Yue spoke, he couldn't help but steal a glance at Mu Yan. There were still some words that he didn't say. Dr. Lu Mengguang of Bright Moon City was a disciple of Purple Cloud Realm's Mulu Pavilion, and was one of the best doctors in the entire Xiuzhen continent. Basically, there was almost no one in the world who could cure Lu Mengguang except for Mulu Pavilion. But Lu Mengguang shook his head after taking Lung Ruolin's pulse. Her 3 souls and 7 mortal forms have been scattered, and she is barely surviving by the power of the formation. She's just a walking corpse, struggling at death's door. If you really care about your sister, why don't you set her free as soon as possible? Lung Yue was shocked at first, then furious. Are you kidding me? I'm here to ask you to cure my sister, not to curse her. He grabbed Lu Mengguang's collar and was about to beat him up, but a pair of slender, soft, and white hands gently pressed down on his shoulder. Mu Yan slowly stepped forward and said to Lu Mengguang with a slight smile, Dr. Lu, it's better to be a little more careful in taking the pulse. Why don't you take a closer look? Has the 3 souls and 7 spirits really been completely dispersed within Aunt Lung's body? Lu Mengguang was disdainful at first. A little girl dared to criticize his medical skills, but when he carefully examined it, he was shocked. 1 soul and 1 spirit, how is this possible? The Tai Ching Yang Qi had already dissipated, so how did the soul and spirit remain in the body without dissipating? Even in the Cleansing Joy Pavilion, no one can do it. Lung Yuma pulled the enraged Lung Yue and said impatiently, I already said that no one in the cultivation continent can cure an illness that my junior sister can't cure. My junior sister said that my mother will be cured by her in the future, so she will definitely be cured. What's the point of finding such a quack? Only then did Lung Yue realize. His niece, this slender and beautiful junior sister, actually had better medical skills than Lu Mengguang. No, it's more than better. Lu Mengguang said that even the people of Mulu Pavilion couldn't do it when 1 soul and 1 spirit that should have dissipated. But this little girl was able to do it. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2748. Moreover, what was even more frightening was that this young lady was not only skilled in medicine, the city-toppling killer, the #1 assistant musician in the cultivation continent, slaughtering Fusang City all by herself. It was hard to imagine that all of this had been done by a little girl in her 20s. Lung Yue's words caused the expression on Madame Lung's face to become even more miserable and despairing. She hugged Lung Ruolin and burst into tears. Father, mother. At this moment, Lung Zhishuan suddenly said, I want to take Ruolin to the floating island's soul-nurturing pool for treatment. Lung Yaoshan and Lung Yue suddenly turned their heads to look at Lung Zhishuan with shock written all over their faces. Even Madame Lung stopped crying and turned to look at Lung Zhishuan in disbelief. Take Lin to the floating island? Lung Yaoshan raised his voice slightly. Do you know what you're saying? Do you know that even a cultivator at the peak of the tribulation passing stage would have a slim chance of survival if he wanted to go to the sky-floating island? Lung Zhishuan withdrew his gaze from Lung Ruolin. His voice was calm, but his tone was indescribably resolute. I've already considered it very clearly. Even if I die, I will not allow Roland to suffer like a walking corpse. Before Lung Yaoshan could speak, Lung Yuma had already stepped forward. The floating island's soul-nurturing pool? What is that place? Can my mother be cured there? Mu Yen and the others couldn't help but step forward. This is not the first time Mu Yen has heard of the floating island. Back when Fusang City was facing the Myriad Caves formation, Qi Huang had said that the formation disk came from the floating island. It was not something from the cultivation continent. Mayan only knows that this world is divided into 3 continents: Yanwu, Xiuzhen, and Xiuxian. Separated by the space barrier, there was no way to communicate except for ascension, but he had never heard of the floating island. At that time, she also had doubts in her heart, but after a series of unforeseen events, she had forgotten about this matter. Lung Zhishuan nodded. I once read in an ancient book that all soul-related injuries, even if the 3 souls and 7 spirits really collapsed, as long as they recuperate in the soul cultivation pool for a few years, they will definitely recover. Lung Yuma said excitedly. Where is the soul-nurturing pond of the floating island? I'll bring my mother over right now. Lung Zhishuan shook his head. You guys can't go to that place yet. Only I can take Roland there. Lung Yuma frowned. But before she could ask, Madame Lung had already pulled Lung Umo and said excitedly. Umo? Are you my granddaughter, Umo? Quick, let grandmother take a good look at you. Lung Yumo recalled what the maidservant had said before, and her body stiffened as she wanted to retreat. However, when she saw the unconcealable concern in Madame Lung's reddened eyes, her heart couldn't help but soften. Good child, you have suffered. Madame Lung hugged her and cried nonstop. If it wasn't for you, I don't know how much hardship your mother would have to suffer in Fusang City. Back then, if I had known earlier. Lung Yuma looked at the woman's sorrowful expression and suddenly said, Back then, I came to the Cloud Ridge to ask to see you. I beg you to save my mother. However, he was chased out. Madame Lung was stunned. Her eyes widened in disbelief. What did you say? How could I kick you out? I didn't even know you were looking for me. Lung Yaoshan's face darkened. All right, the girl and Roland are tired. Let's go back first. This extremely daring maidservant, even if I have to turn the entire Cloud Ridge upside down, I will definitely dig her out. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2749. Yumo, come. This is a gift from second uncle. Take it, don't let those stinky brats cheat you. Let me tell you, if those stinky brats bully you, tell second uncle. I will definitely teach them a lesson. Lung Roland's second brother Lung Yihai. Different from the rest of the Lung clan, he was not good at cultivating and liked to forge. His cultivation was only at the original soul stage, but he already had 5 children. Moreover, all of them were talented. The strongest one was already at the 5th level of astral body realm. In the Yunling Lung clan, if Lung Yaoshan was the pillar and Lung Yiwei was the successor, then Lung Yihai was the one in charge of spreading the clan's glory. Father, what are you saying? We finally have a precious little sister. How can we bully her? Yuma, look, these are the gifts we prepared for you. See if you like them. The Bodhi fruit in the back mountain has ripened. We didn't pick it, so we prepared it for you. Yuma, I'm your 5th brother. It's fine if you don't remember the others, but you must remember me. Move aside, Yuma, I'm your 2nd brother. I have the highest cultivation. If anyone bullies you in the future, tell me and I'll beat them up for you. At this moment, 5 adult men with extraordinary cultivation were squeezing beside Lung Yuma, holding onto their storage rings and showing off their treasures. The scene was comical. However, Lung Yuma felt a warm current flowing through her heart. It was an indescribable warmth. So this was the feeling of being loved by family? So these were her real blood relatives? That's enough. Why are you so rash? Lung Yiwei shouted. If you scare your cousin, I'll punish you to face the wall. The 5 of them were not afraid of their father, Lung Yihai, but they were afraid of their uncle and grandfather. Hearing this, they didn't dare to say anything and retreated to the side, but their eyes would glance at Lung Yuma from time to time, as if having a girl was like having a rare treasure. This made the people of the Xiao Yao sect laugh and feel happy for their fourth senior sister, especially Yun Ruhan. Yun Ruhan in particular remembered clearly how Shiqing had looked when he'd picked up Leng Yuma. His body was riddled with scars, and his cultivation was half crippled. His entire body was filled with hatred and sorrow. She was completely different from the heroic, carefree, and warm woman in front of him. While they were talking, the servants of the Leng family came in with plates in their hands. The leader was a beautiful woman in a green dress. She didn't carry a plate in her hand, but only a wine pot. She walked to Madame Leng with a sweet smile and pouted. "Madam, you're finally back. You don't know how much Xiqin missed you." As she spoke, her eyes reddened. Xiqin always wanted to go to the snowy mountains to serve you, but she thought that there was no one to take care of fourth master. She looked at Leng Jishuan shyly and timidly, but when he saw Leng Jishuan taking good care of Leng Ruolin, his face suddenly stiffened. Madame Leng's attitude towards her was obviously more gentle, as she patted her hand. "Come and greet our Leng family's new young miss." Xiqin's gaze turned towards Leng Yuma. When she saw her face clearly, her pupils suddenly shrank. Leng Yuma's mouth slowly raised as she stood up from her seat. "Xiqin, what an elegant name. It's such a pity that I didn't hear this name when I first met you." Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2750. Xiqin's eyes flashed with panic. "Eldest young miss, this is our first time meeting. Xiqin does not understand what you are talking about." Madame Leng revealed a puzzled look. "You have met before." Before she finished her sentence, Leng Jishuan suddenly stood up and shot a sharp gaze at Xiqin. "Back then, it was you who blocked Yuma's call for help?" Xiqin was frightened by Leng Jishuan's expression, and her knees went soft as she knelt on the ground. I do not know what you are talking about. Eldest young miss, why are you slandering me? What do you mean I blocked you from asking for help? I have never done that." Old madam, Xiqin has followed you for so many years. You must know Xiqin's character, right?" Xiqin cried as she crawled in front of Madame Leng. "This is really Xiqin's first time meeting eldest young miss ah." Leng Yuma sneered and did not speak. She knew that back then, that servant girl had the guts to chase her away. She must have someone to rely on in the Leng clan, and was deeply trusted. Sure enough, Leng Yihai could not help but said, "Yuma, could you have recognized the wrong person? Xiqin has been by mother's side since young. Her character is trustworthy." Leng Yuma's eyes were cold, and did not speak. Of course she would not recognize the wrong person. She could still clearly remember the scene when this maidservant had arrogantly chased her out of the Cloud Ridge. But if Leng clan wanted to protect someone, then so be it. At most, she would go back with her junior sister and third senior brother, and think of a way to secretly kill that person. However, it was out of Leng Yuma's expectation. Leng Yaoshan suddenly said in a deep voice, "Lass, was she the one who stopped you from going to the Yun Ridge? As long as you say it, grandfather will believe you." Leng Yuma was stunned as she looked at Leng Yaoshan blankly. Madame Leng also shook off Xiqin's hand. Her face was pale and she was trembling with anger. "Yuma, tell me, was it really Xiqin who dared to block your way? Don't be afraid. Grandmother will definitely help you with your grievance." Leng Yue sneered at Xiqin. "Don't think that I don't know your dirty thoughts. Don't you like Jishuan, but Jishuan loves little sister? So when you knew that little sister was in trouble, Yuma went to the Leng clan to beg for help. You still dared to hide it. Who gave you the guts to do that?" The coercion of a cultivator at the crossing calamity stage is released, and Xiqin's face turns pale. Her internal organs tremble, and she almost vomits blood. She raised her head and met the eyes of the Leng family. Only then did she realize that everyone present was looking at her with eyes filled with anger. No one believed her. She had been in the Leng family for so many years, and had served the old madam with all her heart. She was obedient, sensible, and hard-working. However, at the last moment, all the members of the Leng family would rather believe a little girl, who had never lived in the Leng family than her. Only fourth young master. Yes, only the fourth young master. She adored him so much, so he would definitely believe her. Fourth young master, you must believe in Xiqin. I didn't do anything. Si Qin cried and crawled to Lung Zhishuan, trying to grab his hand. However, in the next moment, she felt a pain in her neck, and her whole body was lifted into the air. There was no emotion on Lung Zhishuan's gentle and handsome face, but his eyes were burning with flames of anger. I will ask again. Was it you who blocked Yuma's way of asking for help? If you dare to tell a lie, I will throw you as food. Chapter 2751. Si Qin's eyes flashed with panic. Eldest young miss, this is our first time meeting. Si Qin does not understand what you are talking about. Madame Lung revealed a puzzled look. You have met before. Before she finished her sentence, Lung Zhishuan suddenly stood up and shot a sharp gaze at Si Qin. Back then, it was you who blocked Yuma's call for help? Si Qin was frightened by Lung Zhishuan's expression, and her knees went soft as she knelt on the ground. I do not know what you are talking about. Eldest young miss, why are you slandering me? What do you mean I blocked you from asking for help? I have never done that. Old madam, Si Qin has followed you for so many years. You must know Si Qin's character, right? Si Qin cried as she crawled in front of Madame Lung. This is really Si Qin's first time meeting eldest young miss Ah. Lung Yuma sneered and did not speak. She knew that back then, that servant girl had the guts to chase her away. She must have someone to rely on in the Lung clan, and was deeply trusted. Sure enough, Lung Yihai could not help but said, Yuma, could you have recognized the wrong person? Si Qin has been by mother's side since young. Her character is trustworthy. Lung Yuma's eyes turned cold and did not speak. Of course she would not recognize the wrong person. She could still clearly remember the scene when this maidservant had arrogantly chased her out of the Cloud Ridge. But if Lung clan wanted to protect someone, then so be it. At most, she would go back with little junior sister and third senior brother, and think of a way to secretly kill that person. However, it was out of Lung Yuma's expectation. Lung Yaoshan suddenly said in a deep voice, Lass, was she the one who stopped you from going to the enrich? As long as you say it, grandfather will believe you. Lung Yuma was stunned as she looked at Lung Yaoshan blankly. Madame Lung also shook off Si Qin's hand. Her face was pale as she trembled with anger. Yuma, tell me, was it really Si Qin who dared to block your way? Don't be afraid. Grandmother will definitely help you with your grievances. Lung Yiwei sneered at Si Qin. Don't think that I don't know your dirty thoughts. Don't you like Zhishuan, but Zhishuan loves little sister? So when you knew that little sister was in trouble, Yuma had already begged Lung clan, you dared to hide it. Who gave you the guts to do that? The coercion of a cultivator at the crossing calamity stage is released, and Si Qin's face turns pale. Her internal organs tremble, and she almost vomits blood. She raised her head, and met the eyes of the Lung family. Only then did she realize that everyone present was looking at her with eyes filled with anger. No one believed her. She had been in the Lung family for so many years, and had served the old madam with all her heart. She was obedient, sensible, and hardworking. However, at the last moment, all the members of the Lung family would rather believe a little girl, who had never lived in the Lung family, than her. Only fourth young master. Yes, only the fourth young master. She adored him so much, so he would definitely believe her. Fourth young master, you must believe in Si Qin. I didn't do anything. Si Qin cried and crawled to Lung Zhishuan, trying to grab his hand. However, in the next moment, she felt a pain in her neck, and her whole body was lifted into the air. There was no emotion on Lung Zhishuan's gentle and handsome face, but his eyes were burning with flames of anger. I will ask again, was it you who blocked Yuma's way of asking for help? If you dare to lie, I will throw you to the Cloud Essence Beast as rations. Chapter 2752. But in this Xiuzhen continent, where the strong are as numerous as the clouds, this person is still invincible, no one can match him. I remember that you have a legendary story in your pagoda. It's about him. It says that this person was besieged by dozens of crossing tribulation cultivators. In the end he was alone, but he led a group of summoned beasts, killing them until their blood flowed like a river, and finally swaggered away. Mayan stares blankly. This almighty was a summoner? Qi Huang. It seems so. I was bored and saw it in the pagoda. I thought that this person was a bit interesting, so I barely remembered him. What does this person have to do with the floating island? Qi Huang. Before this summoner stepped onto the path of immortal cultivation, he had already married a mortal. But he loved his wife very much, and never married another. Although the two were mortals, they never had children. Until after he stepped onto the path of immortal cultivation, his wife unexpectedly got pregnant and gave birth to a son. This person's son was just like him, with an amazing talent as a summoner. In less than 50 years, he became a crossing tribulation cultivator. But when the stairway to heaven was broken, even if his talent was stronger, what use would it be? This summoner was unwilling that his son could only wait for death on the road of immortal cultivation. So he finally came up with a way to defy the heavens and change his fate. Defy the heavens and change his fate? How? Qi Huang tosses the spirit-peering chess as he unhurriedly says, "Ordinary cultivators can't break through the space barrier. But that doesn't mean that it's really indestructible. For example, Di Mingju, if he didn't care about the stability of the three realms and the punishment of the heavenly Tao, it's not impossible to forcibly tear open the space barrier. But that's also the case for an almighty like Di Mingju, who has divine power. For the people of the Xiozhen continent to hold a so-called divine weapon that's like scrap copper and iron, to achieve it, it's nothing more than a lunatic's ravings." So this summoner used his summoned beast as a spark, and used his own body as a vessel to refine a heavenly holy object. Mayan inhales a breath of cold air. A heavenly holy object? If she remembers correctly, even in the Xiozhen continent, there are very few heavenly holy objects. And in a land lacking in immortal qi like the Xiozhen continent, refining a heavenly holy object is simply unimaginable. Seven Brilliance nodded. In his usual arrogant attitude, he finally managed to force out a bit of admiration. This summoner is quite a character. If the stairway to heaven wasn't broken, he would have easily ascended to the Xiozhen continent and become a big shot. But then again, the things he has done are unprecedented. He's not necessarily inferior to the big boss. Mu Yan. He used his own body to transform into a sacred object to create the floating island. Seven Brilliance nodded. The specific scene wasn't recorded in the ancient book. In any case, he had his son use the heaven-soaring holy artifact that he had transformed into to tear apart the spatial barrier and poke a hole in the sky. A large piece of land on the Xiozhen continent collapsed and floated between the two continents. That is the floating island. Mu Yan looked pensive. In that case, the floating island does exist, and the soul-nurturing pool that can treat Aunt Lung must also exist. Seven Brilliance snorted. It's only now that the stairway to heaven has been restored, and there are fewer and fewer cultivators going to the floating island. Only then would these people doubt the existence of the floating island. These idiots simply don't know that the difference between going to the Xiozhen continent via the floating island and going to the Xiozhen continent via the stairway to heaven is like heaven and earth. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2753. Mu Yan looked at Qi Huang doubtfully. What's the difference? Qi Huang's expression changed slightly. His eyes seemed to be at a loss and irritated. In the end, he simply turns over and directly lies on the grass with his back facing Mayan. He snappily says, "If you're so interested, why don't you go to the floating island and see for yourself?" Seeing him throwing a tantrum like a child, Mu Yan couldn't help but smile. She was indeed curious about the floating island, but she had no intention of exploring it. No matter what's on the floating island, what she wants the most right now is to ascend to the Xiozhen continent as soon as possible and meet up with Di Mingju and Xiao Bao. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. On the godly speed flying ship, the direct descendants of the Lung clan, together with the unfettered seven sons, were all silently looking at the rapidly retreating mountains and rivers below. Lung Yuma snuggled into Lung Ruolan's embrace and hugged her gently without saying a word. Lung Ruolan's expression was still lifeless, but her hands unconsciously clenched onto Lung Yuma's sleeves. Lung Yaoshan stared unblinkingly at Madame Lung, who had white hair on her temples. He opened his mouth a few times as if he wanted to say something, but he couldn't utter a single word. The sorrow of parting spread throughout the entire flying ship. That's enough. Why do you look so sad? Madame Lung patted Lung Yaoshan's shoulder and said, It's not like we won't see each other again. Even if we really can't see each other again, for Lin it's worth it. Lung Yaoshan grabbed Madame Lung's hand and said with a hoarse voice, Ingrong, as long as Lin is cured, I will definitely return. Madame Lung's eyes reddened at this simple sentence. Actually, she had always known. She had always known. With Lung Yaoshan's talent and strength, he could have long ascended the heavenly stairway and ascended to the immortal cultivation continent. He had been unwilling to leave the cultivation world. It wasn't because of the glory of the Lung family, but he just couldn't bear to abandon her, who hadn't been able to advance. Madame Lung couldn't bear it anymore. She threw herself into Lung Yaoshan's arms and cried, Idiot, why are you here? The Xiuxian continent is where you should be. Lung Yaoshan didn't say anything. He just hugged Madame Lung tightly. After a long while, he looked at Lung Yue and said, Take good care of your mother, and don't let anyone bully the little girl and the others. Lung Yue nodded with reddened eyes. Dad, I will. You and Jishuan must also protect yourselves. The flying boat slowly landed outside a forest. This is the Snow Demon Forest on the outskirts of the Horton tribe. The purple cloud realm of the cultivation continent was divided into the north, south, east, and west continents. The most mysterious and isolated place was the northern continent. Many people had lived their entire lives in the purple cloud realm, but they had never set foot in the northern land. They did not know what the northern land was like. This was because there was only one power in the entire northern continent, the Horton tribe. This tribe was extremely xenophobic and powerful. The tribe was centered around the Cleansing Music Pavilion, which was an expert in medicine and auxiliary musician skills. It surrounded several villages, and eventually formed a small world in the Purple Cloud realm. Even the masters of the major clans, sects, and dynasties would have to go through a lot of trouble to enter the Horton Plains. According to the ancient records, there is only one way for a cultivator, who has yet to reach the tribulation stage, to reach the floating island. That is to forcefully enter a spatial crack in the depths of the Snow Demon Forest. But the Snow Demon Forest is in the Horton tribe. Outsiders are not allowed to enter easily. The previous master of the Lung family helped Elder Cleansing Music Pavilion with a small favor, so he received a melody token that allowed him to enter and leave the Horton tribe. Otherwise, he would have to go through a lot of trouble to enter. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2754. As Lung Yue speaks, he walks to the edge of the jungle and lightly knocks in the air. The next moment, a miraculous scene happens. The void, which was supposed to be empty, began to ripple like water. Immediately after, a door of light slowly appears where Lung Yue knocks. Mayan's pupils shrink and she murmurs, What an exquisite array! After lighting up 2 stars of the Shen musician skill, Star's Curtain, Mayan's attainments in arrays can no longer be compared to before. So, even before Lung Yue knocks in the air, she had already discovered the existence of an array. Although the array outside the Horton tribe is not as powerful as the Myriad Caves formation, it is also extremely ingenious and exquisite. In the entire Xiuxian continent, this kind of array is rarely seen. After the door of light appears, Lung Yue says in a clear voice, The Yinling Lung family requests to pass through the Snow Demon Jungle to deal with private matters. I hope that Pavilion Mu can accommodate us. As soon as his voice falls, the door of light flashes, and 2 figures slowly walk out. They are 2 tall and well-built men. Their bodies are wrapped in a cloth that looks like fur or spiritual armor. They don't wear pants but a leather skirt. They are dressed like savages, but they have exquisite and luxurious musical instruments on their bodies. The man on the left has 2 small drums hanging from his waist, and the man on the right has a huqin on his back. Whether it's the waist drum or the huqin, they are all carved out of the best materials, and the edges are inlaid with gems. The extravagant and gorgeous appearance is in sharp contrast with the vulgar clothes of the savages. As soon as the 2 come out of the door of light, They immediately bowed to Leng Yue and Leng Yaoshan. We didn't know that the Yinling ancestor and the master would grace us with your presence. Please forgive us for not going out to greet you. We have come under the orders of the master to ask the two seniors, what is the purpose of your visit to my Horton tribe? Leng Yaoshan waves his hand and says impatiently, this old man has no time to go to Mulu Pavilion. Go and inform your master that my Leng family is only passing through the snow demon jungle and will not disturb the peace of your Horton tribe. The two show hesitation. Leng Yaoshan swung his hand, and a dark green jade tablet flew out from his sleeve. It floated in the air and slowly rotated. The patterns on the top of the jade token were faintly discernible as they rotated, flashing with light. It was hard to see them clearly, but it had a mysterious sense of ritual. The moment he saw the jade tablet, Mu Yen was stunned at first, then he suddenly opened his eyes wide, revealing a serious expression. When the two men carrying musical instruments saw the jade token, they immediately bowed and knelt on the ground. They trembled and said, it turns out that the old ancestor of the Leng family has the music token. Please come in. However, just as Leng Yue Mu Yen and the others were about to enter, they were stopped. The two looked hesitant. Ancestor, you also know the rules of the Horton tribe. Even the music song token can only bring 2 people in at most. Leng Yaoshan waved his hand at Leng Yue, who had an anxious expression on his face. All right, even if you send a gentleman 1,000 miles away, you still have to part ways. What's the difference between parting here and parting in the snow demon forest? All of you can go back now. He paused, his eyes tightly staring at Madame Leng, and his voice gradually softened. Rather than watching us disappear inside, it's better to part here. Madame Leng held back her tears and lightly nodded, as if she wanted to throw herself into his arms, but in the end she held back, and only said one sentence. I will wait for you to come back. Bookmark easier to read. Chapter 2755. To provide you with exciting reading. As Leng Yue spoke, he walked to the side of the forest and lightly clasped his fingers in the air. In the next moment, a miraculous scene occurred. The void, which was supposed to be empty, began to ripple like water. Then, at the place where Leng Yue knocked, a door of light slowly appeared. Mu Yan's pupils shrank as she muttered softly, what an exquisite array! After lighting up 2 stars of the Shen musician's star curtain skill, Mayan's attainments in the field of arrays can no longer be compared to the past. Therefore, even before Leng Yue knocked on the air, she had already discovered the existence of an array formation. The formation outside the Horton tribe might not be as powerful as the 10 Ultimate Caves formation, but it was still exquisite. In the entire cultivation continent, such a formation was rare. After the light door appeared, Leng Yue said in a clear voice, the Yinling Leng family requests to pass through the snow demon forest to deal with some private matters. I hope Pavilion Mulu can accommodate us. As soon as he finished speaking, the door of light flashed and 2 figures slowly walked out. They were 2 tall and muscular men. She was only wrapped in a cloth that looked like fur or spirit armor. She didn't wear pants but a leather skirt. He was dressed like a savage. However, each of them had an exquisite and luxurious musical instrument on them. The man on the left had 2 small drums hanging from his waist, and the man on the right had a huqin on his back. Whether it was the waist drum or the huqin, they were both carved with the best materials and were surrounded by gemstones. The extravagant and gorgeous appearance formed a sharp contrast with the vulgar clothes of the barbarians. The moment the 2 of them walked out of the light door, they immediately bowed to Leng Yue and Leng Yaoshan. We didn't know that Yinling ancestor and patriarch would be gracing us with your presence. Please forgive us for not going out to welcome you. We've come under the orders of the patriarch to inquire about the 2 seniors. May I know why you've come to my Horton tribe? Leng Yaoshan waved his hand and said impatiently, I don't have time to go to the Cleansing Joy Pavilion. Go and tell your pavilion master that my Leng clan is only passing through the snow enchantment forest and will not disturb the peace of your Horton tribe. The 2 of them hesitated. Leng Yaoshan swung his hand, and a dark green jade tablet flew out from his sleeve. It floated in the air and slowly rotated. The patterns on the top of the jade token were faintly discernible as they rotated, flashing with light. It was hard to see them clearly, but it had a mysterious sense of ritual. The moment he saw the jade tablet, Mu Yan was stunned at first. Then he suddenly opened his eyes wide, revealing a serious expression. When the two men carrying musical instruments saw the jade token, they immediately bowed and knelt on the ground. They trembled and said, "It turns out that the old ancestor of the Lung family has the music token. Please come in." However, just as Lung Yue, Mu Yan, and the others were about to enter, they were stopped. The two looked hesitant. "Ancestor, you also know the rules of the Horton tribe. Even the music song token can only bring 2 people in at most." Lung Yaoshan waved his hand at Lung Yue, who had an anxious expression on his face. "All right, even if you send a gentleman 1,000 miles away, you still have to part ways. What's the difference between parting here and parting in the snow demon forest? All of you can go back now." He paused, his eyes tightly staring at Madame Lung. His voice gradually softened. "Rather than watching us disappear inside, it's better to part here." Madame Lung held back her tears and lightly nodded. She seemed to want to throw herself into his arms, but in the end, she held herself back and only said one sentence. "I will wait for you to come back." Chapter 2756. To provide you with exciting reading, Lung Yuma held Lung Ruolan's hand tightly and looked at Lung Zhishuan. "Little uncle, I'll have to trouble you with my mother." Lung Zhishuan shook his head gently and looked at Lung Ruolan beside him with a gentle and doting expression. Lung Yuma smiled and said, "Whether we meet again in the future on the floating island or the Xiuxian continent, I hope that when I see my mother again, there will be someone by her side. Little uncle, you have to work hard." Lung Zhishuan was stunned. He stared blankly at the woman in front of him. Her face was similar to Lung Ruolan's, but more unrestrained than Lung Ruolan's. Lung Yuma gently stroked Lung Ruolan's hair and said softly, "When she wakes up, please tell her that her daughter respects all her decisions. I only hope that in her next life, there will be no pain or resentment, only happiness." Lung Zhishuan's eyes were slightly wet. After a long while he said in a hoarse voice, "Thank you, Yuma. I have a feeling." He glanced at the people of the Xiao Yao sect behind Lung Yuma and said slowly, "The Yunling Lung clan is glorious, but I have a feeling that the Xiao Yao sect in you, Lung Yuma, will create a future that is 100 times more glorious than the Yunling Lung clan. I look forward to the day we meet again." The figures of Lung Yaoshan, Lung Zhishuan and Lung Ruolan disappeared behind the light door. The snow demon forest regained its tranquility, but as long as someone tried to enter, they would be bounced out by the barrier of the formation. Luo Yu tried a few times and realized that she couldn't enter. She then retreated out of boredom. Just as he was about to comfort Lung Yuma, he realized that Mu Yan had been frowning with a strange expression. "Sixth senior sister, what's wrong? Is there a problem?" Hearing Luo Yu's voice, Mayan suddenly comes back to her senses. She frowned slightly and said softly, "I seem to have seen the runes on Mu Lu Pavilion's token somewhere before, but I can't remember where." Huh. Lung Yue was puzzled. Has Miss June seen the music song token? The music song token of Cleansing Lu Pavilion is extremely precious in the entire cultivation continent. It is not easy for anyone to see it. Mu Yan shook her head. "No, I have never seen the music song token, but I seem to have seen the runes on it. Strange, where have I seen it before? Why can't I remember?" Lung Yue smiled indifferently and said, "The runes on the music song token evolved from the Cleansing Joy Pavilion's emblem. What you saw was probably the emblem of Mu Lu Pavilion, right?" As he spoke, he broke off a branch and drew a few lines on the ground. A rune that was similar to the rune on the music song token, but much simpler, appeared in front of everyone. The moment he saw the pattern, Mu Yan's eyes suddenly widened, and he couldn't help but shout, "I remember! Mayan has always been light and carefree, languid and calm." The people of the Xiaoyao school had never seen her lose her composure like this. "Junior sister, what's wrong? What did you remember? Is there a problem with the emblem of Cleansing Joy Pavilion?" Mu Yan didn't answer everyone's questions. Instead, she quickly sank her divine sense into the space and said anxiously, "Qi Huang, quick, help me find a piece of swaddling cloth." Swaddling clothes? Qi Huang dusted off the grass on his clothes. What swaddling clothes? Xiaobao's? Ben Zun doesn't remember you, an unfeminine woman, using any kind of swaddling cloth for your son? Mu Yan took a deep breath. It's my swaddling cloth. Qi Huang stared blankly and turned to look at her. Mayan says with rapt attention, I finally remember where I've seen the runes on Mulu Pavilion before. It's the embroidery on my swaddling clothes. Mobile users, please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please visit the website. Chapter 2757. Mayan says with rapt attention, I finally remember where I've seen the runes on Mulu Pavilion. It's the embroidery on my swaddling clothes. Back then, when my adoptive father, Shenicheng, told me about my past, he said that my father, Jun Shiyuan, didn't leave behind any clues or objects for me to identify or find. The only thing he left behind was the swaddling cloth that was wrapped around me when I was still a baby. Then it was passed on to me. Until now, Mayan still remembers what her adoptive father, Shenicheng, had said. Jun Shiyuan was originally born in Yinwu continent. He ascended to the cultivation world before the age of 25. It wasn't until 10 years later that he returned to the Yinwu continent, carrying the still swaddled Mayan. At that time, Jun Shiyuan told Shenicheng that he was going to find his wife and take her back. She also requests Shenicheng to raise her daughter, Jun Mayan. From then on, Jun Shiyuan lost all news. The only thing that remained was the old swaddling cloth that Mu Yan was wrapped in at that time. It's been so many years since Mu Yan ascended to the Xiuzhen continent. It's not like she hasn't inquired about Jun Shiyuan. However, in the end, no one had ever heard of this name. Unfortunately, Qi Huang also says that he and Di Mingju are unable to make an oath of alliance in front of the Stone of Three Lives, because Jun Shiyuan has already arranged an engagement for him. This meant that Jun Shiyuan was still alive, and it was very likely that he wasn't even in the cultivation continent. But where could he be? Was his biological mother still well? In the end, what happened back then that made them abandon her in the Yinwu continent and ignore her? The truth of all this has always been troubling Mayan, but there is no way to find it. Until today, she had finally grasped a clue. Don't worry, beautiful sister. Chio Chio will help you find it too. Chirp chirp chirp. Huang Huang was also looking for it. Qi Huang. Alright, it's just a piece of rag. I'll reluctantly help you look for it. The space was quickly turned upside down by the three little ones. In the end, the little chick held a piece of red cloth in its beak and excitedly dragged it in front of Mu Yan. Gee goo 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 goo. Mummy. This was found by Huang Huang. Isn't Huang Huang stronger than Phoenix and Brother Red Pants? Damn fat chicken. Are you looking for a beating again? Do you think I won't roast you? Guh. Wah, mommy save me. Brother Red Pants had gone crazy again. At this time, Mu Yan already has no time to care about the three little ones making a ruckus. Her divine sense quickly returns to her body. 6th senior sister, don't scare me. Mayan opens her eyes and smiles at the worried members of the Xiaorao school. Then she looks at her hand. At this moment, there was a small piece of red cloth in her hand. It was a stretch to say that this red cloth was swaddling clothes. That was because it was not as tightly stitched as a real swaddle. On the contrary, it looked more like it had been casually ripped off from somewhere. The edges were already loose and bristling. However, this piece of red cloth was obviously of good quality. Even after so many years, there was still a faint surge of spiritual power. The red cloth was embroidered with exquisite cloud patterns, and in the center, there was a strange pattern. Luo, you couldn't help but exclaim. This design looks exactly the same as the Mulu Pavilion's emblem that Master Lung just drew. Lung Yue came over to take a look, and was shocked as well. Is that really Mulu Pavilion's emblem? Where did you get this cloth? Mayan suddenly clenches the red cloth in her hand, and takes a deep breath. She finally found a clue to find her father, Jun Shiyuan. Chapter 2758. Lung Yue was about to ask again, when the earth shook violently. Then, a ray of light whizzed out of the forest and soared into the sky. Lung Yue looked up and said in a hoarse and trembling voice, "It's father, father," and the others succeeded. They went to the floating island. Lung Yuma's lips curled into a faint smile. She clasped her hands together and softly murmured, "Mother, you will definitely get better." The rest of the Lung family were excited. The spiritual energy in the cultivation world had been getting scarce, and the immortal energy had dried up. As a result, there were very few cultivators on the continent who could advance to the Tribulation Transcendence stage, not to mention ascending to the peak of the Tribulation Transcendence stage. Although Lung Yaoshan and Lung Zhishuan couldn't ascend to the immortal cultivation continent, they were able to go to the floating island, which was enough for the cultivators on this continent to look up to them. As members of the Yunling Lung family, how could they not be proud? Lung Yue coughed. Well, it's not the time to be arrogant. Now that father and fourth brother have ascended to the floating island, the Yunling Lung family lacks the two strongest pillars. It will be much more difficult to gain a foothold in the Xian realm from now on. All of you, keep your spirits up and don't go out and cause trouble. Do you hear me? The Lung family quickly bowed in response. Yuma, why don't you follow me back to the Yunling Lung family? Lung Yue looked at Lung Yuma with concern. You, the unfettered seven, massacred Fusang City and obtained Fusang City's city-protecting formation. The news has already spread like wildfire across the entire cultivation continent. Who knows how many people have their eyes on you, or can't stand the sight of you. But as long as you're in the Yunling, you'll be safe with the protection of the Cloud Essence beasts and the formation. Lung Yuma smiled. First uncle, we the Xiaoyao Seven have always been in this kind of situation. If we were afraid to retreat, how could we be targeted by others? Lung Yue looked at the others. The seven of them were all so young and inexperienced, but the light in their eyes was so dazzling. Their brilliance was unparalleled in the world. Lung Yue suddenly remembered what Lung Zhishuan said. The achievements and glory of the Xiaoyao Seven would far surpass the Yunling Lung family. At that time, Lung Yue had dismissed it with a smile, but now, a heartfelt acknowledgement rose in his heart. Raging flames blade Lung Yuma? My Lung family is proud of you, the descendant of our bloodline. When the flying boat left, Lung Yue left such a sentence. Only when the flying boat disappeared into the horizon did the seven of them look at each other and smile. Where are we going next? Do you even need to ask? Looking at Junior Sister's expression, she must want to enter the Horton tribe to find out what's going on. Of course, we can only risk our lives to accompany her. Hehe. Although I don't know what the Cleansing Joy Pavilion's emblem has to do with Junior Sister, I am very interested in the mysterious Horton tribe of the northern continent. When are we going to check it out? Wait, how can we enter the Horton tribe if we don't have one? Mu Yan looks at the chattering of her fellow apprentices. She can't help but curl up the corners of her mouth. There was a warm and joyful smile on his face. She didn't say anything about telling her fellow apprentices not to accompany her on this adventure. Instead, he raised his eyebrows and said lazily and arrogantly, "Even Fusang City's array can't stop me. Do you think the mere array of the Horton tribe can stop me?" Chapter 2759. Give me a day, I'll take you around the Horton tribe. The eyes of the members of the Xiaoyao sect lit up. Tisk tsk. Junior Sister, is there really anything in this world that you can't do? A talisman to assist in alchemy. And her combat strength is ridiculously strong. Oh my god. An ordinary person wouldn't be able to achieve this even if they studied for a lifetime. But Junior Sister easily grasped it. Is she even human? Chu Moli used his finger to lightly tap the armrest of his wheelchair, and said unhurriedly, "What you've just mentioned are all Junior Martial Sister's secondary duties. You seem to have forgotten what Junior Sister's main job is?" Doctor. If Junior Martial Sister hadn't mentioned it, and if Chu Moli hadn't reminded them, they wouldn't have remembered it at all. Fortunately, Junior Sister is not good at cooking and needlework. Otherwise, I really wonder if there would still be a place for us mortals in this world. Mayan waves her hand, and says in a light and breezy manner, Alright, stop howling. Do you want the Quasi-King Dan that was just successfully refined? It's specifically used to strengthen the body. Yes, yes, yes. Sixth senior sister. I just want you to be a little more powerful, a little more powerful. I want to hug your thigh. Junior sister. It would be great if you could learn how to refine weapons. Then we wouldn't have to worry about magic treasures anymore. Cheers and laughter could be heard outside the snow charm forest. After Mayan smiles, her line of sight can't help but fall on the depths of the snow demon jungle. Could she really find clues about her biological parents here? Mu Yen and the others were laughing and fooling around outside the Horton tribe, but they didn't know that the entire Purple Cloud realm had been set off by the massacre of Fusang City and the ascension of the Lung family's ancestor. North settling Marquis' estate. Chu Xinyan, who had just come out of seclusion, looked at his subordinates kneeling on the ground. The veins on his face twitched violently. What did you say? He didn't get Yi Liangchen's identity or the chaotic tower, but Lu Yu and Chu Mingquan died. The faces of the servants of the north-ranking Marquis, who were kneeling on the ground, were deathly pale, and they couldn't help but shiver. Chu Xinyan could no longer hold it in. He fiercely slapped the air. Trash. Trash. All of them were trash. Why am I raising trash like you? All of you die. The person on the ground rolled on the ground and spat out large mouthfuls of blood. Seeing that Chu Xinyan was about to approach again, the subordinate who was kneeling hurriedly shouted, Marquis, please spare my life. Marquis, please spare my life. This subordinate has good news to report. Please spare my lowly life. Chu Xinyan looked at the person who spoke with a sinister gaze. Speak. If you can't give this Marquis good news, you should be very clear what will happen to you. The man who had escaped death wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and the sweat from his forehead. He knelt on the ground, trembling with fear. Reporting to Lord Marquis, just before you came out of seclusion, there was a phenomenon of cultivators ascending from the northern continent. When Chu Xinyan heard this, he flew into a rage. Are you mocking this, Marquis? No, 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 Marquis, please listen to me. In that strange phenomenon of ascension, there was a faintly discernible 9-leaf red lotus. That's the symbol of the Lung clan. Chu Xinyan's expression froze. The expression on his face kept changing. After a long time, he slowly said, You are saying that the person who ascended is that old man Lung Yaoshan? Yes. Yes. The subordinate nodded repeatedly, his face full of flattery. Other than Lung Yaoshan, who else in the Lung clan has reached the peak of the tribulation stage and is qualified to ascend? In the past, many of Marquis' important matters were because of this old man. He was afraid that the Yinling clan would cause trouble. Chapter 2760. But now this old man has left. In the Xiuzhen continent, who else can stop Marquis' grand ambition? Chu Xinyan's eyes flickered, his left hand gently rubbing the skin on the back of his right hand. As early as 2 months ago, this hand was like dry bark. But now it is smooth and firm. But Chu Xinyan knows that this kind of young, smooth, firm hand will not last long. He must think of every way to accumulate all the resources, so that he can obtain true longevity. Under the bright sunshine, the flowers and plants in Dingbeiho's mansion are particularly lush, tender and alluring. A beautiful butterfly flaps its wings and lands on the back of Chu Xinyan's hand, as if it is gently kissing him. However, the next moment, its wings are pinched and crushed into powder. Chu Xinyan's palm soars with a purple-black flame, completely burning the traces left behind by the butterfly. He sneers, Your so-called good news is only this? Just one sentence, and the subordinate who had just breathed a sigh of relief is scared out of his wits. Chu Xinyan's eyes soar with a strong killing intent. Very good. Since you are all trash, then become this Marquis' nourishment. Marquis, please wait a moment. This subordinate has another news. Chu Xinyan narrows his eyes. The killing intent around him does not dissipate. Someone cured the Morong family's blood fiend. Chu Xinyan is startled. As the most proficient in intelligence in the entire Xiuzhen continent, Marquis has the widest network of eyes. Chu Xinyan certainly does not know what kind of disease the Morong family's blood fiend is. The Shui family's people? No, not the Shui family. The man kneeling on the ground says with a trembling voice, "The Shui family's auxiliary skills can only alleviate the blood fiend. But that person completely cured the Morong family's blood fiend." This news came from a spy the subordinate placed in the Morong family. These words caused Chu Xinyan's pupils to suddenly shrink. Who is it? Who cured the Morong family's blood fiend? Someone from Mulu Pavilion? The subordinate shakes his head again and again. Marquis, you should have some impression of this person. She is the strongest among the Xiaoyao 7 sons, the most famous god-killer Mu Yan. She is the one who cured the Morong family's blood fiend, that no one could cure for 1,000 years. The corner of Chu Xinyan's mouth slightly hooks up. The Xiaoyao 7 sons Jun Mayan. His lips opened and closed as he murmured softly. His eyes shone with a determined light. There's no rush. Wait for me to complete my grand plan. How could a mere female cultivator not be of use to me? At the peak of the Phoenix Heaven mountain range, Ning Su impassively thrust the demon-slaying sword in his hand into a man's chest. The man spat out a mouthful of blood and slowly fell down. His blood-stained hands couldn't help but grab onto Ning Su's trousers and shout, "Why? Why won't you let me go? I've already decided to abandon my cultivation and live the life of a mortal. Why do you still want to kill me?" Ning Su pulled his hand back and looked coldly at the balls of black murderous aura dissipating from the man's chest. His eyes lost their light, and he said coldly, "Once one becomes a devil, one will be a devil for life. Damn it. You're the devil. You're the cold-blooded and vicious devil. With a thud, the man fell to the ground and stopped breathing. Ning Su didn't even look at him, and turned to leave. However, just at this moment, a dazzling light suddenly soared into the sky from the northern horizon. Faintly, there seemed to be a red staircase floating in the air, faintly discernible. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2761. Ning Su stares blankly. Fly to the floating island? Who's forcibly tearing the barrier to go to the floating island? He mutters to himself for a while, then turns his gaze to the man on the ground. This demon's accomplice hasn't been completely slaughtered yet. After he's done here, he'll go to the northern continent to see who's so bold as to forcibly tear open the space-time gate to the floating island. As the sun sets, the entire snowy forest is dyed with a beautiful golden red. Suddenly, a door of light appears in the originally tranquil forest. The surrounding air gently ripples like water. Soon, 7 silhouettes enter the light door in a single file. Wow, we came in just like that. Luo Yu looks at the scene in the snowy forest and giggles. There's nothing strange about this mysterious Horton tribe. Yin Ruhan knocks him on the head with a straight face. Don't be so mischievous. There's obviously the aura of a powerful vicious beast in this snowy forest. Everyone be on high alert. Do you hear me? Luo Yu bitterly touches his aching forehead and says gloomily, "Eldest brother, you're biased. Why do you only lecture me every time?" Yin Ruhan glares at him, and is about to speak when his face suddenly changes, and his whole body violently shakes. After Luo Yu is done complaining, he happily follows Mayan to study the rare spirit plants in the snowy forest. This is a blood python flower, it's priceless outside. I didn't expect there to be so many of them in the snowy forest. Mayan looks at the bright red flowers that are only the size of a fingernail, overjoyed. Priceless. Lung Yuma swallows her saliva. Does that mean they can be sold for a good price? Mayan smiles. Not only can they be sold for a good price, they can also be used to refine several rare elixirs. Luo Yu excitedly waves his hand. Then what are we waiting for? Brothers and sisters, how do we pick them? The snowy forest is filled with laughter and cheerful voices. The blood python flowers on the ground soon disappear without a trace under their robbery-like plucking, leaving only a barren land. Luo Yu excitedly says, "Sixth sister, quickly see if there's any valuable spirit grass or spirit fruit here. Let's take advantage of the fact that it's not dark yet and pick more." Before he can finish speaking, there's a sudden thud behind him. Everyone turns to look and see that Yin Ruhan has fallen to the ground. They don't know when, but her face is flushed and her eyes are closed. Eldest senior brother. The blood python flower in Luo Yu's hands fell to the ground. She threw herself at him. Eldest senior brother, what's wrong? Don't scare me. Mayan's figure leaps and arrives in front of the two. Xiaoqi, step aside. Let me take a look first. Luo Yu hurriedly dodged, but her eyes were fixed on the unconscious Yun Ruhan. The worry in her eyes was overflowing. Sixth senior sister. What happened to eldest senior brother? Mu Yan took his pulse for a full quarter of an hour, her brows knitting tighter and tighter. The people of the Xiaoyao sect gathered around her. Their faces were filled with anxiety, but no one said anything to interrupt her. It wasn't until Mayan withdrew her hand that Luo Yu anxiously asked in a sobbing voice, Sixth sister, eldest brother. What happened to eldest brother? Mu Yan didn't reply to Luo Yu's words. Instead, she reached out and grabbed Yun Ruhan's clothes, giving it a tug. Seeing the wound on Yun Ruhan's chest, the people of the Xiaoyao sect all gasped. At the location of the heart, there was a dense mass of reddish-brown bugs crawling. What is this? Luo Yu screamed and reached out to grab those bugs. Did they make eldest senior brother unconscious? Chapter 2762. When he says this, Luo Yu grits his teeth. He grabs hundreds of small bugs and crushes them into powder. Lung Yuma and the rest quickly do the same. These bugs don't seem to be aggressive. In just a moment, they are completely crushed by Luo Yu and the rest. However, Yun Ruhan is still unconscious with a flushed face. There's no sign of him waking up. It likes to stick to people's wounds and devour rotten flesh, especially fresh corpses. But in fact, this kind of bug doesn't have any spiritual power or demon power. Even if it crawls on a mortal's body, it would at most make their skin itch. For cultivators with spiritual power and a strong body, it should be harmless. Mu Yan explains the origin of this bug in a low voice. She can't understand it even after much thought. When she felt Yun Ruhan's pulse just now, she didn't find anything wrong with his body. He wasn't poisoned, injured, or possessed by the devil. There's only a slight blockage in his heart meridian, and it seems to be mixed with a trace of evil energy. Maybe this is the reason why Yun Ruhan is unconscious. But when and where did Yun Ruhan get this evil energy? Is it because of these rotten ticks? But rotten ticks are not aggressive. Luo Yu and the rest could easily crush them to death just now, which proves this fact. Little junior sister, if it wasn't caused by these rotten ticks, why would eldest senior brother be unconscious? Luo Yu looks at Yun Ruhan's chest heaving up and down. His face is burning with pain, and his eyes turn red. He grabs Mu Yan's hand and looks up at her with pleading eyes. Sixth senior sister. You think of a way to save eldest senior brother. I don't want eldest senior brother to die. Mu Yan reaches out and rubs his head. What nonsense are you saying? How can I let eldest senior brother die? She frowns and barely calms her mind. You guys stay here and guard eldest senior brother. I'll go look around. Look for what? Ling Yushin quickly says. Little junior sister, I'll help you look. I'll go too. Mu Yan shakes her head. I don't know what it is exactly, but everything in the world has its counterpart, and there must be a counter. Eldest senior brother might have been poison, but I've never seen this poison before, so I can't diagnose it. Since it's poison, there must be something within 100 meters that counters it. Looking at everyone's worried and expectant eyes, she smiled gently. Are you still worried about my safety? Don't worry. I will definitely find a solution. You guys stay here and guard eldest senior brother. After all, this is someone else's territory. You must be careful. Mayan holds a few rotten ticks in her hand as she walks towards the depths of the snow demon forest. She had a feeling that eldest senior brother's coma had something to do with these rotten ticks. Skill activated. Mu Yan releases the rotten ticks in her hand and finds that they are quickly crawling in one direction. The sky is already dark, so Mayan can only use the illumination crystal to explore the way. Soon, the rotten ticks stopped in front of a depression and circled around on the spot. Mu Yan looked around and didn't find any unique spirit plants. She takes a deep breath, and the Tianamochin appears in her palm. The zither strings were plucked, and the sound of the zither was melodious and lingering. Activate. Soon, The surrounding spirit plants began to shake their branches and leaves in a frenzy. Bright moonlight sprinkles down on the jungle, and along with the music, it seems to transform into the essence of the moon and is absorbed by these plants. Chapter 2763. The whole jungle is immersed in joy and longing. At the same time, countless information is fed back into Mu Yan's mind along with the sound of the zither. After a long time, the sound of the zither gradually stops. Mu Yan suddenly opens her eyes, leaps, and arrives in front of a big tree. This big tree is very inconspicuous in the dense snow demon jungle. The branches and leaves are sparse, there are no flowers or fruits, and the roots are densely crawling with many small insects. Mu Yan looks at the tree, and the corners of her mouth can't help but gently curve up. An hour later, Mu Yan returns to her original place with the big tree that has already been stuffed into her space. However, the scene in front of her makes the smile on her face suddenly vanish. They're gone. The fellow apprentices who should have been waiting here have all disappeared without a trace. There are a few traces of fighting in the surroundings. There are even traces of dragging on the ground, extending all the way to the north. Mu Yan's face darkens little by little. She starts again. But the strange thing is that the spiritual plants in this area are like inanimate objects. No matter how she plays the Tian Mo Chin, she doesn't get the slightest response. The worry, anxiety, and regret in Mu Yan's heart converge little by little. Qi Huang. Alright, didn't you light their life lanterns in the book pagoda? Right now their life lanterns are all lit up. What are you worried about? Mu Yan abruptly comes back to her senses, and promptly goes to look at the life lanterns in the book pagoda. There are a total of 9 life lanterns here. In addition to Yun Ruhan's group of 6, there are also Xiao Bao's and Shi Qing's. Mu Yan originally wanted to light little martial uncle Luo Yunxiao's, but she finds that he is the same as Di Mingju. His cultivation is too high, and he can't condense a life lantern in the Xiuzhen continent. Seeing that the 8 life lanterns in the book pagoda are all lit up, Mu Yan is relieved. Then, the worry in her heart turns into icy anger. I don't care what kind of ghost place this Horton tribe Mulu Pavilion is. If you dare to hurt my fellow apprentices, then don't blame me for being ruthless. At dawn, Mu Yan follows the traces left behind, and finally walks out of the snow demon jungle. But all the traces completely disappear after reaching the outside of the jungle. She is at her wit's end, when suddenly a cold light flashes. A long sword mixed with a fierce killing intent attacks her. Mu Yan casually moved sideways to block. The 7 absolute swords appeared in her palm, and she blocked it horizontally. A clang was heard. The sword-wielding figure let out a delicate cry and retreated a few meters, almost falling to the ground. This person steadied himself and was about to attack again, but when he raises his head and sees Mayan's face, he abruptly stops moving and exclaims, "Great God June!" Mu Yan turns to look. The sword wielder was a very young girl with fair skin and a beautiful appearance. He looked familiar, but she couldn't remember where she had seen him before. The little girl recovered from her shock and rushed over excitedly. Her small face was brimming with smiles. "God June, it's really you. I can't believe I actually met you here. I shouldn't have attacked you just now. Great God June, don't be angry with me. I'm really happy to see you again." Mayan hesitantly asks after a long while. "You are?" The little girl didn't get angry, even though she hadn't been recognized. Instead, she smiled sweetly and sincerely. "Great God June, my name is Lin Xiaomin. You've saved so many people, and I'm only one of them. It's normal that you don't remember me, but to me you're my second parent." Chapter 2764. A thought flashes through Mayan's mind, and she blurts out, "You are Fusang City's." Lin Xiaomin's eyes revealed a trace of fear and pain, but it was quickly replaced by a bright and beautiful smile. She looks at Mayan with eyes brimming with gratitude and reverence. 3 years ago, I was playful and secretly left the Horton tribe, wanting to see the world in the Xiuzhen continent. Who knew that? I was tricked into entering Fusang City. I thought that I would be tortured to death in that hellish Fusang City. But great God June, You descended from the sky like a god, and rescued me from that nightmare. Lin Xiaomin's face revealed a trace of guilt as she spoke. I know that what we owe you is not something that can be repaid with just a word of thanks. Many sisters chose to follow you in order to repay your kindness, but I was so selfish, because I couldn't bear to leave my parents and brother. I was afraid that after 3 years, they would still be looking for me and worried about me. So I chose to return to the Horton tribe. The smile on Mu Yan's face becomes gentle and soft. You don't have to feel sorry. I did all that for myself, not to save you. You don't owe me anything. As for you, how have you been after returning here? Lin Xiaomin immediately shook her head heavily. The smile on her face was silly, but there was an indescribable warmth in it. My parents and my younger brother are very good to me. As long as she thought of the hardships and dangers she had gone through when she returned home, her parents and younger brother rushed over to hug her and cry. Lin Xiaomin felt that no matter what kind of hellish torture he had experienced, he could tolerate it and get over it. Because she still had such a good family waiting for her, watching over her, loving her. She lived her life for the people who loved her. She would never allow it to be destroyed by a group of animals. Lin Xiaomin stroked her hair and said softly, "When I first came home, I always woke up from nightmares. I didn't dare to see the sun, and I didn't dare to let any man near me, even my father and brother. Later, under my parents' persistent questioning, I finally told them what I had experienced in the past 3 years. But my father, my mother, and my younger brother didn't scold me or despise me. Instead, they hugged me and cried for the entire night. My father said that if I hate men, I can just stay unmarried for the rest of my life. My mother told me not to tell anyone about what happened in the past 3 years. My younger brother said that he has to quickly become stronger, so that he can protect me, his elder sister." Tears fall from Lin Xiaomin's eyes. She looks at Mayan with tearful eyes. She can't help but reach out and grab her sleeve. She says in a hoarse voice, "Great God June, I'm really grateful to you for giving me the opportunity to go home. You have no idea how grateful I am to you." Mayan reaches out to wipe away the tears on her face, and her heart warms. She was not a good person in the purest sense, and she disdained to be the Virgin Mary, who saved the world. But at this moment, he saw that his subsequent rescue had given a kind and beautiful girl a new life. That kind of surging satisfaction and peace of mind was absolutely incomparable to pure slaughter and venting. "By the way, God June, why have you come to the Horton tribe?" Lin Xiaomin wiped away her tears and regained her radiant smile. Her round little face looked particularly adorable. "June Monsieur, why have you come to the Horton tribe? This place has always been isolated from the rest of the world, and I rarely see outsiders throughout the year. Did you come to Mulu Pavilion to seek treatment?" Chapter 2765. When Mu Yan was treating the female cultivators in Fusang City, many of them were still in a coma and didn't know that Mu Yan had treated them. When they woke up and found that their injuries were healed, they thought that Mu Yan had fed them expensive elixirs. Their hearts were filled with gratitude towards the Xiaoyao school. But the ones who truly understood the truth were Zhu Wan, Elan, and the other female cultivators who chose to follow Mu Yan. Lin Xiaomin thought of something and her face showed a trace of worry. These years, both inside and outside the tribe, there have been more and more people seeking medical help from Mulu Pavilion. But it's as difficult as ascending to heaven to get help from the saintesses of Mulu Pavilion. "God Junyu, saintess?" Mu Yan thought for a moment and shook her head. "I'm not here to seek medical help. Do you know the nearest place to inquire about information?" "Inquire about information? That's for sure." Lin Xiaomin quickly said, "God June, are you looking for someone or something? I know where the Wangyin market is, I'll take you there." Mu Yan smiled. "Thank you." Lin Xiaomin's face suddenly turned red, and she kept twisting her clothes. She looked up and peeked at Mu Yan. "God June, how can you say thank you to me? I can't even repay what I owe you." God June looks so good when he smiles. And he looks younger than her. But he's already so powerful. "Mu Yan, what about you? Why are you outside the snow forest?" And as soon as he saw her, he launched a fierce attack. Lin Xiaoming's face turned even redder. She was at a loss as to what to do. I'm sorry, great god June. I thought that you were here to rob people on this road. I wanted to come to the Snow Demon Forest to collect some valuable spirit herbs as payment for my brother's medical fees. Mu Yan understood the ins and outs of the matter from Lin Xiaoming's narration. It turned out that Lin Xiaoming's brother had been talented since childhood, but he got a strange disease 6 months ago. His originally tough and wide meridians gradually began to wither, so that his cultivation stagnated. In the Horton tribe, there were many people who got this disease. Some people recovered after seeking medical help from Mulu Pavilion, while others gradually improved after taking elixirs. But there were also some people who were not lucky enough to be treated by Mulu Pavilion. After the medicine failed, their meridians gradually withered and became damaged, until they became disabled and even died. Lin Xiaoming's brother Lin Xiaotsong was only slightly ill. Although his cultivation could not advance, his life was not in danger. However, a month after Lin Xiaoming's return, Lin Xiaotsong's condition suddenly worsened. All the meridians in his body rapidly aged and withered. 3 days ago, a talented young man who had already reached the peak of Jindan's stage could only lie in bed, unable to even walk. Lin Xiaoming's entire family was burning with anxiety. Coincidentally, the holy nuns of Mulu Pavilion were going to treat the commoners of the tribe for free. The saintesses of Cleansing Lu Pavilion said that it's a free medical consultation, and they won't charge any fees. But in reality, if one wanted to obtain a spot to be treated, they could only buy it by bribing the saintess subordinates. The more skilled the sage nun is, the greater the price she has to pay to obtain a spot. Lin Xiaoming sighed softly. In order to treat my younger brother, our family sold everything of value, but it was still too little. That's why I wanted to try my luck in Snow Charm Jungle. There were frightening beasts in the Snow Phantom Forest, and there were often gangsters roaming outside the forest, robbing and robbing. Chapter 2766. Lin Xiaoming specially came over early in the morning and searched for the most remote place. With great difficulty, he found a fairly valuable one. Just as he was about to go back with trepidation, he suddenly noticed Mayan coming out of the forest and overreacted. Lin Xiaoming. Great God June, Wangyin Bazaar is about to open. There's a place in the bazaar that sells all kinds of information. In fact, the Horton tribe is a bit xenophobic, and the rules are relatively strict. If outside cultivators casually inquire about it, they may be expelled. Lin Xiaoming carefully glanced at Mu Yan before continuing. But the Listening Sound Pavilion is different. The Listening Sound Pavilion belongs to the Ning family of the northern continent. Whether it's the Horton tribe or Mulu Pavilion, they have no right to intervene. In the Listening Sound Pavilion, as long as you can pay enough crystals, you can inquire about any information, and it won't be reported to Mulu Pavilion. Listening Sound Pavilion? The Ning family's strength? Mu Yan slightly narrowed her eyes. Okay, then I'll trouble you to take me to Wangyin Bazaar. Wangyin Bazaar is called a bazaar, but in fact it's more like a city. Today is Wangyin Bazaar, so there will be a lot of people. Great God June, it's just up ahead, please come with me. Mu Yan followed Lin Xiaoming's directions and curiously observed the cultivators of the Horton tribe. The people here, whether it's their clothing or their customs, are indeed very different from the other 3 continents of the Ziyun realm. The most striking difference is the musical instruments they are wearing. Whether they are wearing simple and crude clothes or gorgeous and exquisite clothes, almost 80% of the cultivators in this bazaar are wearing a musical instrument. Moreover, these musical instruments were not just ordinary playthings, but were meticulously refined spirit artifacts and magic treasures. It seems that the northern continent of the Ziyun realm is full of cultivators who love music. Lin Xiaoming pulled Mu Yan and quickly stood in front of a private room. The plaque on the main door reads in bold and vigorous calligraphy, Listening Sound Pavilion. Mu Yan didn't let Lin Xiaoming accompany her again, but walked into the pavilion alone. As soon as she entered the main door, the sound of decadent music hit her. A young man wearing a black robe embroidered with gold immediately greeted her. Welcome to my listening sound pavilion. What kind of information would you like to purchase? Mu Yan looked around and found that there were fewer people than she had imagined. Moreover, everyone's expression was respectful and cautious. The young man in the pavilion clearly looked like he was still wet behind the ears, but these cultivators, as guests, didn't dare to show the slightest arrogance. It seemed like the power behind the listening sound pavilion was not small. Mu Yan thought in her heart, but her face was still indifferent. She casually tossed it in the direction of the manservant. The manservant casually caught it, but when he saw what it was in his hand, his expression immediately changed. Obsidian crystal. The value of a piece of obsidian crystal was equivalent to a few thousand high-grade crystal stones. Not to mention, if obsidian crystals were to be added into the forging of many magical equipment, the strength of the magical equipment could be increased by several times. The most important thing was that obsidian crystals were priceless. Even if you wanted to exchange 10,000 high-grade crystal stones, you might not be able to exchange for it. The formal smile on the manservant's face immediately turned into a warm and ingratiating one. Esteemed guest, please come to the private room on the second floor. I will let the shopkeeper entertain you. Don't worry, no matter what kind of information you want, my listening pavilion will definitely gather it for you. Chapter 2767. Mu Yan directly throws out the obsidian crystal that little Marshall uncle gave her. This is the effect she wants. The door to the private room is pushed open, and a middle-aged man with a gentle and refined appearance walks in chuckling. Spending 10,000 crystals to inquire about information in my listening sound pavilion. I haven't met such a generous guest in years. When the man's eyes meet Mu Yan's, his pupils suddenly shrink, revealing a shocked and incredulous expression. You are. Mu Yan raises her eyebrows. What? You know me? Hearing the girl's clear and sweet voice, the opposite person seems to wake up from a dream. A gentle smile hangs on his face, but the shock and doubt in his eyes still hasn't completely disappeared. The famous, devastatingly beautiful slaying god monarch Mu Yan, who on the road of cultivation wouldn't know her. My listening sound pavilion has collected portraits of all the famous people in the Xiuzhen continent. Miss June and your fellow disciples are all among them. I just didn't expect. Mu Yan, didn't expect what? I didn't expect your true appearance to be. The man's expression is somewhat absent-minded, blurting out a reply, but halfway through, he suddenly stops. Sorry, I forgot myself. The man composes himself and smiles apologetically. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Wenqing Yuan, the shopkeeper. Miss June has found this place, and even offered such a high price. I don't know what you are looking for. Mu Yan looks at him for a while, then casually takes a sip of tea, chuckling. My 7 fellow apprentices and I sneaked into the Horton tribe, but in the snow demon forest, the 6 of them suddenly disappeared without a trace. Looking at the traces left at the scene, they should have been taken away by force. I wonder if listening sound pavilion can find out where the 6 of them went. Wenqing Yuan is clearly stunned, and only after a long time does he say meaningfully, Miss June should know that in the Horton tribe, those who sneak into the barrier without permission are sentenced to death. Miss June is so brazen that you can't say it. Aren't you afraid that I will report you to Mulu Pavilion and the Horton tribe? Mu Yan takes another sip of tea, her expression becoming more and more languid. So didn't I just pay a piece of obsidian crystal to shut your mouths? Or is the rule that listening sound pavilion will accept orders, as long as there are crystals to earn fake? In the northern land of the purple cloud world, the Ning family is afraid of the cleansing joy pavilion? Wenqing Yuan laughed heartily. Miss June is really an interesting person. You're right. As long as you have enough crystal stones, no matter what kind of information, my listening sound pavilion will definitely help you find out. As he said that, Wenqing Yuan stepped forward and respectfully handed over a red paper crane. I ask Miss June to be magnanimous for a few hours. This one guarantees that the news of your 6 fellow apprentices will reach your hands within a day at the latest. At that time, If Miss June feels that the information we provided is not worth the price, you are welcome to come and collect the reward at any time. The listening sound pavilion was really confident. Mu Yin chuckles, takes the paper crane, and gets up to leave. Just as he reached the door, when Qing Yuan's voice came from behind him. Miss June, may I take the liberty to ask you a question? Mu Yin turns around to look at him. When Qing Yuan hesitated for a moment. May I ask, who are your parents? Mu Yin stares blankly, then the corner of her lips hooks up. I'm sorry, I'm an orphan. I've never met my biological parents. Great God, June. Seeing Mu Yin coming out of the listening sound pavilion, Lin Xiaomin hurriedly greets her. Great God, June. Did you find out the information you wanted? Chapter 2768. Mayan chuckles and nods. I still have to thank you. A shy smile appears on Lin Xiaomin's face. Didn't you say that your brother is here for treatment? Let's go take a look. Mayan thinks that if Lin Xiaomin's brother gets a place to be treated by Mulu Pavilion, then it's fine. If he doesn't, then she will try to treat him. It can also be considered as repaying Lin Xiaomin for leading the way. Every year, Mulu Pavilion saintesses, who are good at medicine, will treat various diseases for the believers in Wangyin Bazaar. And there's no need to look for the location of Qingyi Hall. In the entire Wangyin Bazaar, the most magnificent building, the most lively and bustling palace. Father Mother Xiaochong, Lin Xiaomin pulls Mayan, and with great difficulty, they squeeze through the crowd and see the Lin family waiting in line. Lin Xiaomin immediately takes out the ones she collected from the snow forest. Father Mother, look, this is the jade mussel flower I collected. The flower in the little girl's palm blooms layer by layer. Its leaves pink and tender and alluring. Although it's not big, the quality of the flower is excellent. Lin Fu and Lin Mu are simply overjoyed. Great. We were just worried that we wouldn't be able to get Mu Lu Pavilion's deacon to give us a place. By the way, Minner, this is? After their joy, they see the woman standing next to Lin Xiaomin, and for a moment they are stunned. The girl is dressed in white. Her face is covered with a veil, and her face can't be seen clearly. But just by standing there, she gives people a breathtaking feeling, as if she's carved and polished. At this time, Mayan's attention is focused on the center of the hall. There's a vacuum area in the bustling crowd. An isolation array has been set up around it, and there are several guards wearing the same clothes at the entrance of the array. The barrier blocks the crowd, but it doesn't block the line of sight. So Mayan can see that in the center of the array, there are 5 beautiful female cultivators floating around. These 5 female cultivators are dressed in the same gorgeous clothes, and their waists are embroidered with a pattern similar to Mulu Pavilion's emblem. Each of the 5 is holding a musical instrument, playing it from time to time. Because of the isolation array, the music doesn't reach Qingyi Hall. The female cultivator on the far left is playing the Chinese harp, while the ones on the right are jade flute, guzheng, yangqin, and pipa. Mu Yin thought to herself, it seems that Mu Leg treats people with music. That was interesting. Just as she was thinking about it, she heard Lin Papa and Lin Mu talking to her, and she came back to her senses. However, before she could reply, someone shouted from the side, the next batch of believers is here to have an audience with the saintess. Father Lin and Mother Lin shuddered, and no longer bothered to curry favor with them. They helped Lin Xiaozong, who was unable to walk, up and walked in the direction of the array. Mu Yin was very curious about Mu Leg's method of using music to treat and save people, so she slowly followed Lin Xiaomin. Jade mussel flower. When the guards beside the formation saw the pink flower in Lin Xiaomin's jade box, their eyes lit up. He had originally wanted to wave his hand impatiently to chase these poor old men away, but he also retracted his hand. This is a good item that can be used to refine the face retaining pill. If we offer it to the sage nun, we will definitely be able to obtain a lot of benefits. Alright. You guys can go in. Remember the rules and don't offend the sage nun. The Lin family was overjoyed to hear this reply. They thanked him profusely and entered the spell formation. Mu Yin also leisurely follows them in. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.